Hey folks, welcome to Leeds United The View live, our second live stream that we've ever done, really. And I'm joined by Alex from American in Leeds podcast and Michael, who is Leeds faithful on Twitter, who are becoming a regular thing, lads, isn't it?
Yeah. It's good to see you.
I'll say hello to everyone who's in chat. We've a couple of people kind of hanging around. Simon, Nick, welcome. Smudge, how are you doing? Rusty's there as well. Usual people that tend to comment on the videos as well. So welcome to the stream, folks. So we're going to, before we do the intros, just a bit of a download on what we're going to talk about tonight. We're going to kind of just cover the signings that have come in so far this season and how we think they've gotten on. And we're going to kind of look at the positioning that we're in now with 10 games left before the World Cup break and to see how we're all feeling about that. Jer, say 33 on Thursday. There you go. You happy? There you go. You can have that. Who said that to me? That was Simon. You're welcome. And then we're going to just talk about the new deal stuff that came out today around the EFL and the restructuring and UEFA's wage cap that they're considering. So, while Michael is coughing, I want to also say thank you to Michael for jumping on today because he's not well. So if everyone can, send best wishes to Michael, that would be great.
I hope my mute worked when I coughed.
It did. You're fine. Yeah, you're perfect. You're
good.
Before we get cracking, then I just want to introduce everyone individually because I'm aware that when I did the deadline day one, we just started and didn't give anyone any kind of space to talk about who they are. So I'm going to just introduce people and let them tell you who they are and where you can find them. So we'll start with Alex. Alex, who are you? Where you're from? And what do you do?
Alex Simon. I have a small channel, small podcast called American in Leeds. It's at American in Leeds on Twitter. I think if you could just search it on YouTube as well. And I blind emailed Gier a couple months ago, and he's been just a breath of fresh air. Love the chat, the connection, and I think in our conversations, people have always said, we're very measured about what we go about. We're not a reactionary kind of like group of fans and fan channels. So I think we balance each other out that way, and it's been great. I'm happy to be here.
It's great to have you. If you haven't checked out Alex's channel yet, it's American in Leeds podcast on YouTube, and you can also get him on all the normal podcasting audio channels, I'm assuming as well, Alex.
Yeah, we're just starting that out. Spotify and Anchor.fm are the main two.
Great, brilliant. Well, I've loved these streams that we've been doing. I was going to say, I love working together. No one's paying us for this, so that's a shame. But we should be getting paid for this, because we are balanced and measured, or at least we're trying our hardest to maintain ourselves as balanced and measured. Because there's enough people shouting at microphones in YouTube without us adding more screaming to the pile. So we'll try
in
and
the world, yeah.
Yeah. And then we've got Michael. Michael, who are you? Where are you from? What do you do?
Yeah, I'm Michael Maynard. I'm from Canada, just a city near Toronto, actually. I've been a Leeds fan since the late 90s when I was a teenager. Sort of discovered football at that point in time as a teenager. And I'm a Leeds fan, I think, because my mom is actually from Leeds and her family are from Leeds. So that was sort of the connection when I went looking for a club and trying to figure out, well, I'm kind of getting into this. Some of my friends are into it. Did some research and became a Leeds fan. And as I once gave an interview to the Yorkshire Evening Post, actually, about being a Leeds fan in Canada and how I became a Leeds fan way back then. Premier League wasn't really huge here at that point. It was just coming on stream, sort of after the 94 World Cup in the US, Alex, actually, is when I think a huge explosion in interest in football over here. So later on in the 90s as a teenager, that's when I really started getting interested, and Leeds was where I ended up landing. And it, as I said in the interview with the YEP, it gets in your soul. Like once you're in, you're hooked. And that's just no turning back at that point. So been following along since then through all the ups and downs.
It's my father. He used to. I'm a Leeds fan because of my dad. My dad was a diehard Leeds fan. We only got to see Leeds as he got older. Couldn't afford to get over to Leeds to see games. I think the first game we ever saw Leeds play was League One against Rotherham. That big top of the table mega fixture that you're looking for. Rotherham United Leeds in League One. But we were regular goers. My dad used to describe himself as a long-suffering Leeds fan, and he would tell anyone who would listen to him that it's a vocation supporting Leeds. It's not a choice. It's a vocation. If you're in, you're in. That's it.
I tell people often I'm a Leeds supporter for all my sins.
Yeah, it's all the time. It really does.
Yeah.
It's like it's a form of torture for ourselves.
Yeah.
I am going to just announce something just on the stream, but we've got a couple of people here, not a lot. So this is a very exclusive group of people. I've been kind of hinting at this for about a week. I've been talking to a journalist in Leeds about doing an interview, trying to get more of an insight into Leeds and people who are closer to the clubs. And they agreed, and we're trying to put it together. So the plan is on Thursday morning, I will be interviewing Adam Pope from BBC Radio Leeds, who obviously commentates on Leeds games, but is also a journalist in the area as well. Adam is going to pop on. So that video should go out probably Friday or Saturday, because I'm traveling to the States on Friday to Seattle for a week for work. So I'm planning on just dropping that content in while I'm flying away, because there'll be no video on Friday. So that's the plan. If it doesn't happen, I'll put a note in the community tab anyway, so you can see when it's going to go up. But it's fingers crossed, editing and everything going well, it should be done by Friday. So if you've got questions that you would like Adam to answer, you by all means, please stick them in the chat, or you can DM me on Twitter if you want it. No hassles there, that they're open, so I can easily take them in. So we'll crack on then, and we'll get into the agenda for tonight. And we're going to start off just talking through the signings that we've made so far. We had our deadline day stream, which was actually eventful in the last hour when we thought it wouldn't be, and it ended up being. And we've seen all of our signings play now. Wilfried Gnonto making his debut last week for the under-21. So we've got to look at everyone now. So it's a good time where we have the break, and let's be honest, we've got nothing else to talk about. We may as well go through the list, and let's just see how everyone feels about where we are so far. So we'll start off as they came in the door. Brendan Aaronson. This is an easy one, lads, isn't it? Alex.
Yeah, he's been a great player. I think his ability to turn people, play within the system, go take the ball, put it centrally, and then he's a pressing. We knew this coming in. He was one of the biggest pressers in all of Europe, and it's just great to see him. He's a breath of fresh air. He doesn't really. I want to say, how do I say this? He's got that that bravado about him, where he just kind of like doesn't care, in the sense of like. He doesn't have any preconceived notions about negativity, like doesn't seem to enter his mind. So I just like him, from his mindset to his play on the field to his pressing. He's been a great addition. If I had to have one thing about him as an American, and he's a young lad too, I want him to bulk up just a little bit. There's been moments where he's been, this is an overused term, bullied off the ball. I don't necessarily like that term, but it's a physical league. We were just talking about it in the, previously. It's just a physical league. So I'd like him to get more size on him as he goes throughout this campaign and maybe next year. But other than that, he's been an absolute great signing. And as you said, George, you made a great point when we first talked. He kind of has to be good for that money, and I think he's delivered.
Michael.
Yeah, I think I hope maybe next summer he starts doing his workouts with Jack Harrison, because that's done wonders for him. He does need to bulk up a little bit. I agree. I think he's an outstanding talent. You gotta remember, he's only 21. He won't be 22 until October. He's a young player. You almost forget that he's as young as he is. He could very well be playing for the U21s right now, but instead he's playing for our first team as a regular starter and doing quite well. He has sort of faded in and out a little bit to start, which is understandable. I think as a team, we've sort of done that a little bit as well. But I really love him on the ball. I think he's brave on the ball. I think he is willing to take anyone on, which is great. His pressing, obviously, that was one of the big things about him. He seems to have boundless energy, and you almost get the sense that he could play 90 minutes back to back, with the amount of running that he does. So yeah, I think he's still maybe a little bit raw, but that's understandable because he's so young. So yeah, bulking up a little bit, I think would be great. And then, just sort of smoothing out that rawness a little bit and honing in on the talent and, doing a little bit more in terms of delivering, final balls and that sort of thing, I think is where it's at with him. But I think he's a really great talent already, and I think he's just going to get better with time.
Yeah, I would agree with the points on. I don't want to see a huge amount of bulk on him, because the danger is you might lose some of the speed that he has. It's his breaking speed when we win the ball. When we win the ball deep, you see Adams winning the ball. As soon as he's won it, it's boom, it's explosive. He's gone. But around the edge of the box, you do want him to be able to hold off pass. He will get free kicks from being a little bit lighter, but you don't want them easy free kicks, because you won't always get them. But you want to be able to hold up the ball, and in those situations where we have to break quickly, can you hold the ball up and let other players catch up with him and get into the box to create chances, as well as being on the end of them? And I think they're fair points. And the fading in and out, Michael, I think is a good point as well, because there's a bit of that is probably bedding in period of getting used to the league. I think he said that himself. He did an interview this week with the national team, and it's a fantastic interview. I think I said today, the more I see him talking and see him playing, the more I like him as a character off the pitch, as well as a player on the pitch. And he said he wants to become a Leeds legend. He's willing to work. And when seeing what we've seen from him so far, when he says he's willing to work, you kind of get the impression, well, he means that, because he's really worked hard so far. But he's been 22 million. We said it had to be a good player. I think so far he's looked value for money. I think it was Simon Jordan said during the week, what a player that kid's going to be. You've all the top people. Thomas Frank at Brentford after the game, even despite winning comfortably, goal wise anyway, his comment was, what a player. That he's gonna be, that kid's gonna be some player, and he's ours at least for the next 3 years, and then we'll probably think about selling him. But for now, he's still ours, and you would be surprised if you don't get a return on 22 million if you do sell him anyway. He's been so good, and he's only going to get better. He really is. And the FIFA 23 ratings came out this week, and he's got a 75, which is absolute daylight robbery for me.
Yeah,
disgraceful.
Yeah, yeah.
Mark Orange chat is saying Jack Harrison counts his abs as closest friends. Jason O'Keefe needs to go on the Guinness. Yes, he does. That'll bulk him up in no time. I'm not sure it's the right kind of bulk, though. Brendan needs a few British roast dinners. Tony Boa was famous for saying that he loved Yorkshire puddings when he was living in Leeds. And he bulked up a bit as well. So maybe Brendan can follow him down that route as well. Okay, so are we saying hit or miss on this one? Hit so far?
Hit.
Oh, hit all round. I agree. Okay, this one will be a bit more on the fence, I think. Rasmus Kristensen. Start with Michael this time.
Yeah, it's a bit odd that we got a player seemingly for his physical attributes, and that's what's been letting him down. And he himself has now admitted, I guess, that he needs to do a lot more to sort of get up to speed in the league, and that it is a totally different beast than what he's used to, in the Austrian Bundesliga. So, I think there's certainly some talent there. I think he needs more time to develop. I'm not willing to close the book on that one yet. It's way too early. I can't say that I've been overly pleased with his performances so far. He has shown moments where he can get forward, can produce dangerous things going forward. Defensively, I mean, our fullbacks are going to get exposed anyway. So how much of that is on him? How much of it is on the system? If you're trying to sort of figure that part out, does he look better or worse as a defender than Firpo? Maybe a bit better. But he doesn't look better than Struijk, for example, who's playing left back out of position, and who's been much better. So yeah, I'm not convinced about him yet, but I'm not closing the book on him yet either. I think hopefully he will develop, and maybe this little bit of time off where he's been injured and needs more training or whatever will help him get up to speed a bit, and we'll see what happens when we start again in October.
Alex.
Yeah, he has struggled, admittedly, to the coach. And apparently Jesse said there was some moment, it's like a relayed quote, that he had, I don't know, in the Austrian Bundesliga, 10 to 15 impactful moments that he knew about in the game. And now he's only got one or two. He's lucky to get one or two. He feels like impactful moments. This is from Rasmus via Jesse. So admittedly, I think he's struggled. I think early on, he seems to have a little bit of a partnership with Aaronson. Sometimes they seem to both express themselves on that wing. I think he came close to a goal, and he should have had a penalty in the first game. So if he had that goal where I think it was like, how did you miss? It was a header off the back post from a set piece. That might have settled him down a little bit, but the fullbacks are going to get exposed in this system. So I'm not completely selling him down the river, so to speak. I think he's going to be in a competition with Luke Ayling now. I think and that's a good thing. I think, and Luke, Bill is the perfect player to have that competition because he's a seasoned English football vet. So early doors, I mean, you can't really go wrong. I think that was like 10 million, right? 10, 12 million, something like that. So we can't go wrong really with Rasmus there. So I'm going to say I'm a thumbs up on it, just from a price perspective. And then long term, we'll see if he's, the fullback of the future, so to speak.
Yeah, he said it himself this week. There was again, they're all gone off on international break and they're all doing interviews locally. And I think he said himself that he was a dominant presence in the Austrian league, was how he described himself, in a physical presence. And he assumed he could do the same in the Premier League. But when he got there, he realized he was dealing with a much bigger, more physical player, even from the smaller types of players, like Neto, for example, when he tried to hit Neto and he just bounced off him. So he said that he said the 2 weeks that he's had off with the little knock and the injury that he got has allowed him to recalibrate. And his exact words were, I've got it and I'm ready to go now. As if he's learned the lesson, knows what he has to do, and he's good to go. But that's, again, there's another positive trait in that, whereas they're identifying the mistake themselves, they're admitting that there's a clear flaw or an improvement needed and doing the work to get that fixed, which I think is great. I agree with you, Michael, when you said that he's not physical enough yet, but I think it's just understanding the physicalness rather than the physical size, because he's a big boy. He's a big beefy boy.
Yeah.
But it's just how he uses that right. power with the pace as well of the league. And that's the thing as well. Like small players who are fast, you think you can just knock them off the ball. They can use their pace against you. You can mistime it as well. So I think, for me, we said it at the start of the season, it's a free hit at 10 million. It really isn't going to cost an awful lot. So, but again, good point on Bill, Alex. He will have seen last week, I think it's been said there, Nick said it in chat, he will see exactly what is needed after watching Luke Ayling come on and look really, really, really solid when he came in. And I personally think Luke Ayling's style of football is very suited to Jesse Marsh's style of football. And I think we might even see the best out of Bill from Jesse as well. But again, he has time and we need competition for places. So I'm going with a yes. Good signing. Michael?
Yeah, I'm going to go with a hit on that one. It could go the other way, but right now I'm going to say hit. And that attitude, it's sort of like that for me, but that attitude where what he expressed in that interview, saying like, I know that I haven't done enough yet, and I know that I need to fix these things. That's what puts it on the positive side for me. If he knows those things and he's willing to put in the work to fix those things, then I think, he certainly has the physical capabilities to be able to do it. And I think he's got, he's shown that he can be a successful, good football player. So let's give him a chance. And I think, I think it's a good one. It's a yes for me so far.
I would say every single player we have on this list, and I'm going to include Firpo in this as well. Even though we didn't sign him this year, they need time. And give them some time. We can get some smashing players. Remember, there's still players in this lead squad who we'd all written off mid-table in the championship. And I'm going to say it out loud. I was one of the Leeds fans in Calvin Phillips' early days in the championship where I said, I don't think he's going to get any better. We're probably done with this kid. We could probably let him go. Alex Mouth's a far better player than he is. And then look what happened afterwards. So different managers, different time, things can change. So cool. Next one I think is an easy one as well. Roca, Marc Roca. Alex.
I think he's been good. I mean, so I guess I haven't looked at him enough in the midfield, maybe because I'm just trying to look at Tyler Adams, but there are people that are out there that are saying that he is the best. He hasn't put a foot wrong. I think obviously he's a win on my perspective. I like that the goal he got at Brentford. I'd like to see more of that of him, and I feel like he ripped it a couple of times during that game. I'd like to see more aggressiveness out of him. But again, I think he was a signing that was out of Bayern, and it was a low risk kind of signing. It's
well,
not like So thumbs up, and thumbs up specifically on the fee for Orta.
Yeah, he could have scored a couple of times in Brentford before he actually did score. Like he's moving further up the pitch. Like the first couple of games, he was doing that steady job with Adams in the kind of holding pivot. But now you're starting to see him arrive in the box with stuff as well. So that fitness is getting there. Michael, what do you think?
Well, Alex mentioned that there are some people out there who think he's been our best signing, and that I'm one of them. He's pick of the lot for me so far. I think he goes about his business in a way that's a little bit quieter than perhaps Tyler Adams, who buzzes around so much. And so when you're looking at the two of them, I think sometimes what Roca does might get overshadowed a little bit because it's less busy, but it's equally or more important, a lot of what he's doing, which is no slight on what Adams is doing either, obviously super important as well. But I think Roca is a huge difference for us in midfield this year. Adams is sort of doing a lot of the defensive stuff that we had from Calvin Phillips, for example, last year when he was fit. But Roca is a huge difference for us in breaking lines, moving things forward, keeping the ball ticking over, and making sure that we're able to get out and actually start attacks and start doing things with the ball. So, and I'm also glad to see that he is starting to break forward himself a lot more now as well. I also really like him positionally. He seems to have been in the right place at the right time for a lot of interceptions. Just sort of even defensively reading the game really, really well. So I think he is pick of the bunch for me, and I think there's more to see from him as he gets up to speed as well in this league, and also just knowing that he didn't play that much at Bayern, so he does need to just physically himself. He just needs to get more. He's being substituted early and stuff because of the fitness and whatever. I think there's going to be even more to see from him. I'm very excited about Marc Roca.
Yeah, I've left this comment up on the screen because I think it's a good comment, because this is literally what we're talking about. Roca does the stuff that you don't notice in a game. And he's the kind of player where you shouldn't notice him. And if you don't notice him, he's probably doing the right things. He's there to pick up the little scrappy balls. He's there to win this, what they call it, what we would call it in football, is the second ball, where, it's breaking down. He's the one that just nips in and passes it 2 yards to somebody else to go and do the work. He goes about his business. He just ticks over. He keeps it simple. And now he's starting to add more to his game. I think his forward passes has the highest percentage rate of completions in the league. I think he has the most duels won in the league, I think, for his position. And I think he has the highest pass completion rate of any midfielder. And they're hugely important traits for a player, especially in the middle of the park in the Premier League. So, yeah, I think it's a great question, Mark. Does he do enough? I think we're starting to see exactly what he does. And he's kind of player, I think, that when he's not in the team, you'll see exactly what he does, because you'll notice the gaps that are there. And we've been much more solid in midfield this year. And it's not just Adams. I think it's Roca as well with that. So good question, though.
Roca's definitely, so if I can just cut in a little bit on that one.
Yeah, go for it.
Just to finish my thought, sort of was coming to me as you were talking on that one. I'm reminded, when I think about Roca, I'm reminded of that quote about Click, which is, if you watch the game, you don't see him, but if you watch him, you see the whole game. That may be a bit of a cliche, but I think it really works with him as well. Not the same player as Click, not the same position, doesn't do the same job, but very, very similar in the sense that you may not notice them all the time until you actually watch them, and then you're like, wow, that guy's actually making a huge difference right now.
Yeah. I've had players play for me over the years where you'd be playing a certain game and somebody go, what is wrong with us today? Like, it's what is going on? You go, well, he's not playing. And you're like, oh God, yeah, he's not playing, is he?
Yeah.
They might not be the star, like they're not the Sinisterra or the Raphinhas or the, but they're vitally important to your team. They're those kind of players. And we haven't had that for a long time. There's a player of Fulham who I liked who was similar to that as well. Come back to me. Oh, Reed. Not D. Cordova, the other Reed.
Harrison Reed.
I like Harrison Reed. I think he's a player just does simple things and he cleans up well, and he's a good player. He's just 7 out of 10 every single week with the odd 8 and 9. They're consistent. Cool. We'll start flying through a couple of them because I know Alex is tight for time. So we will briefly go. We'll say Adams next. So Adams, Michael.
Yeah, I really like Adams. He's we talked a little bit about him when we were talking about Roca. I think their partnership, and I think that maybe even be in the comments somewhere. So the Adams Roca combination. Yeah, they complement each other so well. And Adams does a lot of the stuff that we all really liked about Calvin Phillips. He doesn't quite have the forward passing abilities yet. he's not picking out amazing, diagonal passes, that sort of thing. But that's also not the role, because he's not a single pivot. He's meant there to clean up, to tackle, to give support to everybody. And then Roca's the guy that's supposed to get the ball forward. So I'm not really looking to Adams for that very often. Although I do notice that he is starting to do that as well. You are starting to see more forward passes from him. You are starting to see him coming up towards the box, the edge of the opponent's box now, and get more involved in that sort of thing. So yeah, he's definitely a hit for me. And again, one of those players, and maybe it's the same sort of American boundless energy and optimism that you have from Aaronson that you have in Adams as well. And that is a trait in American athletes, right? This sort of very, very optimistic way of going about your work, and very, very sort of professional and hardworking, and they really value that, I think, in North American sports. So yeah, I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of having him in the team, and I'm looking forward to seeing what else he can do. Because I'm sure that, like Aaronson and everyone else, there's more to come from him. He's still young.
There is.
Yeah.
Before I go to Alex real quick, on the Phillips passing stuff, most teams around the world have a player that breaks up the ball, and then they give it to the player that can pass the ball long, or go direct, or find those passing lanes. We were blessed to have a player like Phillips who could do both. But and that's why he was held in such high esteem. Those players are very rare. There's a handful of them. Alex, your thoughts?
Yeah, and amazing that we are talking about, I mean, the very loose rumor of Calvin Phillips being loaned back to us, and the question even being asked, would Phillips get on the team at this point, is kind of wild. KP is a Leeds legend. He is, he's a Yorkshire lad. He's a Leeds lad, and he's been one of my favorite players for the club. But yeah, to everybody's point, I think, Adams has been my favorite player. He's been the player that just gives that intensity. He plays with a chip on his shoulder. He gives you that personality. He's not the biggest guy in the world, but he plays like he's big. He plays like a bully, the junkyard dog kind of like feel. Like that's what you want in the middle of the park, kind of a little bit of an enforcer. I like how he gets in people's faces, and I know this isn't, but I just love that partnership too.
He runs around the pitch like he's looking for a fight, and I like that. I really like that,
and I love that kind of he's becoming. My hope is that he's becoming the heartbeat of the team, and so he's been just excellent to watch. I love that he's revitalized his career under Jesse March, a player that took him under his wing at Red Bull New York. But yeah, I love him.
If we get time, we're gonna talk briefly about this, because this question has just been put in by Aiden. Are we being sport washed by the US? So we're gonna talk about the American influence that's coming into England. There's been a huge amount gone with that. We'll fly through this list, we'll wrap it up, we'll get to this, and we'll get to one other topic, and then we'll wrap it up. It's not gonna be a long one tonight. So but really good point, Aiden, and thanks for making it. Sorry, Nick just said I give Tyler Adams a captain's armband. I wouldn't yet, but I could definitely see it happening.
I see it happening.
I'll also say that we had a conversation too, Michael. I didn't think he would be this good. And as an American, I didn't think he would be this good. I actually wanted escapes me, the other lad from Salzburg. Mo. I wanted Mo as an American. I was like, he's not getting any minutes here in Leipzig. Yep. So he's just been great, and great signing by Orta and etc.
Okay. Yeah, I think everybody wanted Mo Kamara. I mean, Kamara is an exceptional talent, and I think he is sort of more of a two-way player and can do a lot of other things. But I'm very happy with Tyler Adams and what he brings to the team, even just in terms of, someone just mentioned, like, captain's armband, right? Like, I think that may be something that happens eventually. He shows a lot of leadership already. And again, not old. He's a young guy. Is he 23?
23, yeah.
Yeah. Like, he's got a long way to go in his development. And it's funny. And look, I don't want to make a direct comparison per se, because I think that the guys that we have right now have a long way to go before they get there. But with Adams and Roca, I'm really getting Batty and Dakor vibes.
Oh, yeah. What a midfield. What a midfield. Two people that could kick you up in the air and pass the
Yeah.
ball as well. I love
Yeah,
this.
because Roca doesn't shirk away from challenges either, right? He gets in there. So
I'm one flying tackle away from thinking Rock is like the core. Like that's
Yeah.
all that's missing is a lunging tackle out of nowhere. Someone, and then I'm like, yep, there he is. That's the player.
Yeah.
Cool. We move on then. So universal hit then for Adams. He just think he's a tidy player. And who said, what did we say, Alex, at the start of this year? There'll be a lot of people who look very silly who make comments about American football players.
I've got that pinned on my Twitter. So if you go to my Twitter, it's Jeer talking about the looking very silly. Yeah.
Not saying we know what we're talking about, but I think we might know what we're talking about. So Sinisterra. This is going to be a brief one, won't it be? Alex, Sinisterra. What do you think?
Yeah, great player. Could be everybody's saying the Raphinha replacement. I think he hopefully is more lethal in many ways, more clinical than Raphinha. I love Raphinha, his ability to express himself on the wing and get balls in the box. But my hope is he's Raphinha, but with more finishing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, the only game he hasn't scored in was Brighton, and he missed the open goal in that game. So he should be 5 for 5. He's 4 for 4, including the League Cup. He should be 5 for 5. What was the XG on that? It was like nearly 0.99 or something like that.
It was 0.99. Yeah. He just went with the wrong foot and ended up whacking his leg off the post, right?
You take that out of it. He's got 4 goals in 5 games for a brand new signing. He was just come in.
Yeah.
Anyway, he should be 5 for 5. Michael, thoughts on Sinisterra?
Yeah, I again another hit for me for sure. I think he's an excellent talent. He's exciting. He's a different player than Raphinha. I know he's sort of like the Raphinha replacement. They are not the same player. They play differently. But I think you're going to get a similar level of excitement out of him. I think with Raphinha, I think you are definitely going to see more of the embarrassing players out on the wing, right, out on the touchline, and sort of that explosive, sort of knock it past somebody and turn them inside out sort of stuff. I think with Sinisterra, you're going to see more close control. He seems to be better with the ball at his feet in tight situations. Whereas Raphinha was really explosive and yeah, exactly. He could run.
Space.
And he had a heavy touch sometimes.
Yeah.
Occasionally had a heavy touch.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he did. And then I think what you're also seeing with Sinisterra is they have a similar level of, I don't know what it is. There's something about them where they, I'm just going to have a pop here from outside the box, and he's scoring from outside of the box in the same way that Raphinha did. So, is it confidence in their ability to hit the target and to make something happen from nothing? That is similar. And I do wonder if perhaps Sinisterra may be a little bit more clinical than Raphinha.
I think he might be. And the one thing that stands out as a difference between the two was when Raphinha got the ball, he looked for open space in behind. He looked and to Alex's point about his heavy touch, a lot of time he was trying to push the ball into space to run after it because rely on his pace. The difference is Sinisterra, it sticks to him. He wants to drag you in, and then he wants to go past you nice and tight. The other thing as well is Raphinha stood out an awful lot more in games, and defenders would back off Raphinha the second the ball looked like it was coming to him. They wouldn't go and press him. They'd drop away from him from fear of being nutmegged or conceding space in behind. That hasn't happened yet with Sinisterra. People are going very close to him. They're nearly man-marking him at times, and he's still scoring. The more his reputation builds, the more players are going to start to back off him. And I think that will actually play into his hands a bit more. I think we've got a player who can do the long runs if we need him to do them, but also the close, tight stuff. And his accuracy from his shooting is incredible. He sees gaps where, maybe only Pablo Hernandez sees gaps because the goal he got, the first goal he scored in the Premier League, whereas the backward shot against himself against Everton, I didn't see that shot at all being on and then ends up in the bottom corner. So, universal hit. We'll move on. We're going to just talk about let's talk about a couple of freebies. Sonny Perkins is a freebie. If you watched Under-21s at all yet this season,
been watching them. Incredible. What a goal scoring talent he is. He's scored more goals than he's played games now, right?
5 and 4, same as Mateo Joseph.
4? Yeah. We need obviously we're a little bit shy on the striker department. He's still in development, but looking down the line, and he does have senior level experience at West Ham. So, I don't think he's too far off. And looking down the line, I think we've got definitely building the right way to have someone who I think will be able to come in and make a difference in the first team.
Yeah, I think it was Ben Parker said in the under-21 game that he normally plays on the wing for Leeds, and he scored all of his goals coming in from the wing. He was playing more central in the last game because of all the first team players that were in the team. But Premier League 2 player of the month as well. So he's looking every bit of the bargain signing we thought we were going to get. All he cost us was a tribunal fee and wages. Yeah. Alex, what do you think?
I haven't seen too many U21 games. I can just speak to, I like the fact that we're continuing to replenish the youth. It's so vital for a club like Leeds to continue to kick on. So I want to continue to see the same with Willie and all the players. So I can just kind of say broadly, I want to continue to see that it's a young man's game. We have to continue to invest in the youth.
We've Darko, JB, and we have Joel Robles as well that came in, but we'll skip them for now. JB's been around in the news a bit this weekend. We're just around the work that he does on his own, and being given out to by Pat Bamford for doing a Cruyff turn on the edge of his own box and losing the ball. So there's a bit there to be learned with him, but we'll move on because we are tight on time. If you did see the under-21 game last week where the first team players did play, Wilfried Gnonto made a pretty impressive start to his Leeds career.
Yeah,
Michael, what did you think?
Yeah, I think he's going to be a good player. He's like a little wrecking ball, isn't he? He's not he's not tall, but he's stocky, and low center of gravity. He's quick. He's good with the ball. I think he's going to be a player for sure. I don't know. Well, I guess we'll see if Marsh's assessment of sometime earlier in the window that he's not quite Premier League ready will come to bear or not. But I think he's looking like a very good talent and another call up to the Italy squad. I mean, how much longer will he play with U21s? I think we'll start seeing more of him in the senior team before the end of the season.
Yeah, I just want to acknowledge something that just happened. You are correct, Michael, and everything you said, but something just happened that shocked me. That's a super chat from Smudge and a €10 donation, a $10 donation to the channel. Smudge, thank you very much. You absolutely did not have to do that, or nor does anyone have to do that. But
thank you,
Jesus, thank you. Yeah. There's my no swearing rule gone. Thanks for that, Smudge. Really appreciate that. Thank you very much. I've lost my train of thought now. That's thrown me completely. All right, where are we going to go back to? We were talking about Gnonto. We're talking about Gnonto. Alex, Gnonto, talk to me.
Yeah, I like what I saw. You called him Tidy, Gier.
Tidy, yeah.
In our chat. And he's getting in the fact that he's an Italy international. Is this the player that we thought is like a throwaway signing towards the end of this window, but might be a major, massive impact on the club? 18. I don't know. 18. Yeah, wild. He's got the braces on. You know, he could be an absolute steal. And I hope his development continues and maybe a first team call up and possible start at some point during this year.
I think it's likely. There was an interesting thing that I saw during the game, and I did want to say it out loud because if you write something on Twitter, it can be misconstrued as being a certain way. And I didn't want to say something in case people thought I was making a black player with a black player comparison. But the more I watched the game, the more I saw Rod Wallace. He was so similar in he's this really tight sprinting kind of. He doesn't open his legs out. It's a very narrow kind of sprinting technique. He's very, very low to the ground. The ball barely moves ahead of him. He tends to run on top of the ball nearly. And his passing looks at times like he's underhit the pass, but it's not. It's perfect. He put a ball in for Bamford at one stage through 3 or 4 players, and I thought he's underhit that. And it was just perfectly weighted to land in front of Bamford. His passing was fantastic. But he looked like a player that reminded me of Rod Wallace, especially at one stage. He got on the halfway line, he turned, and the cameraman couldn't keep up with him. He ran out of shot, and the cameraman had to wildly pan to catch up with him. And I remember growing up, Rod Wallace was my favorite player when I was a kid growing up. My first Leeds jersey was number 8, Rod Wallace. And he just took off, and I was looking at it going, that's Rod Wallace. Like every bit of that player looks like a young Rod Wallace. And if he can finish like Rod Wallace, what a player we're gonna get. But I thought he looked nice and tidy. Tidy's the word I use for a player who isn't wasteful with a ball. Like everything he did with the ball, either if he couldn't go forward, he went back. If he couldn't go back, he went sideways. He maintained possession of the ball whenever we had it, and he rarely lost it. And he won a lot of free kicks in and around the edge of the box as well. So I of all the players we're talking about in the under-21s pushing through, the likes of JB, the likes of Perkins, and the likes of Joseph, I've seen more from Gnonto in that one game than the other two so far in terms of just being at the first team level caliber. The only difference is there were 5 first team players, actually there were 7 first team players, 5 over 21 players playing in that team, which changes the dynamic completely. I saw one of the Leeds blogs bragging about us destroying Southampton. And I was like, well, we had 7 first team players in the team and they had none. So, but it's not a fair playing field. But he had all the attributes that you're looking for. He could hold the ball up, he could run, he's pacey, he can run, he can dribble, and his passing was excellent for me. So I think there's a hidden little gem in there as well, and an absolute bargain. Somewhere in the region of 4 and 10 million, depending on add-ons and everything else. I think the upfront fee was 4, but they bumped it to 7 to get him earlier because they had agreed a deal for next year. So a good young man as well by all accounts. He comes across as being a very humble, nice fella, and that's a trait with a lot of these signings. When you see them interviewed, they come across as pretty humble people, and I think Jesse Marsch knows the kind of character he wants in his dressing room, so it's good to see. So before we go any further, thanks to everyone who is watching the channel, following the content, liking and subscribing and all that. I really, really appreciate it. I'm joined by Alex from the American Elites podcast. You can go and support him over on YouTube as well. And we're also joined by Michael, who is at Leeds Faithful on Twitter, if you want to give him a follow and pick up on any information that Michael shares around as well. So moving on to our next topic then. So we'll skip ahead just in the interest of time, because I want to make sure Alex is here for this piece. Alex, as a proud American, are we being sports washed? Is the American influence a danger to the English football and the pyramid?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. And I'll let my North American friend Michael chime in. The Great Lake just separates us, so we're very similar. But I think we are. And it really was that comment by the new Chelsea owner, Bowley.
Yeah, Todd Bowley.
And it was at this, I called it a stroke, ego stroke conference. But, to say that there's an all-star game and to say that stuff is just so tone deaf and uncontextual, and it's poor. It was poor judgment on him. But I don't want to say I'm concerned. I don't know if that's the right word, but the Americanization, the sports washing of the Premier League is going to continue to happen. And I hope that, the logistics of getting something like an all-star game or getting, removing relegation, isn't in the best interest of the sport. And really, I have to be honest with you. I was a huge NFL fan. I left the NFL. I found the Premier League. I found Leeds United, which sounds crazy. My baseball team growing up was the Kansas City Royals, and they were terrible for so long. But I like what I love about Leeds, what I love about this journey, because I found them during the Gary Monk era and continued on, is I like the progression and the grind, and to look back and to see where we were. And I know, Jir is as he said, long-suffering Leeds fan. He can really look back, and Michael can really look back. I'm looking back a little bit, but that's what I like about this pyramid that Leeds have the possibility of scaling. It's very difficult to do without, oodles of money and et cetera, but it's possible. And this, climb that we are on is what I love. And when I don't see that that's attainable, or I don't see that that's, even if a Premier League team like a Big Six side has this massive roster, names, $1 billion club, when the whistle blows, everybody's a football player.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about this game. It's 45 minutes continuous clock. The rules are so simple. The offsides, everything. I mean, it's meant to be. Obviously, VAR has changed some of this, but it's just it's so beautiful that we can upset a club like Chelsea 3-0. That's so beautiful, and we're going to hopefully have continuous moments like this.
Yeah.
So don't mess with the sport. It's so beautiful. It's so perfect. Don't mess with the pyramid. Don't put it in the Super League, anything like that. I understand. I talked about this in another vlog. The American owners do look at the Premier League as attractive because it's very attainable to buy the clubs. In other words, like I think at one point Leeds is, I don't know, I can't remember. It was like 900 million. Leeds was at one point with 300 million. That's a very attainable. The lowest ranking, some of the smallest clubs in America are $1 billion, the small clubs. So that's why I think a lot of the owners are interested in this. I mean, you see, Hollywood actors. I think that I can forget their name, but right.
Great documentary, by the way.
My wife's addicted to that show, but they came over. There's a lot of income potential, and I think they see that the branding, etc., through these clubs, and it's by no mistake, Leeds is a top 10 club here in America now. Not just because of the signings. It was a top 10 American club before that, but it might have been because of Take Us Home, Amazon, etc. It's a one club city. It's a beautiful kit. But I guess I think it's coming, but I hope that the fans, like they did 2 years ago, that pushed back against the ESL, the Super League, and said, hey, no, that you're not, football is for the fans.
Yeah.
People were protesting during a pandemic. Football is for the fans. And so I hope that even though they see more money over here in the Premier League, that they don't mess with what's good, what makes it grow already. And that's all I got to say.
There's two threats right now. So I looked at the thing today about the new deal that's being touted from House of Commons in the UK, as well as the Premier League and the EFL, and UEFA are involved in this. And UEFA are trying to bring in a 70% cap on your wages versus income. And the problem with that is it's like financial fair play. We were warned when financial fair play was coming on that all it will do is lock the league tables where they are. The top teams will maintain the top teams. The bottom teams will never get to that stage. And Leicester are the only team to really break that model. And if they bring this in, they've actually put up, there's a graph today that they showed, and it would mean Leeds can spend 135 million a season on wages and everything else. That's it. But Man City could spend 800 million on that. I think Man City were counted this week as the second biggest brand or notable brand in the world of sport right now, which is gas when they can't fill their own stadium. But you're under attack from two sides. There's the American influence. And the difference here is about the relegation piece. In America, you don't have relegation, but you have a draft system. So there's still a way for teams to move up and down and teams to win Super Bowls and MLS Cups that maybe didn't win it for a couple of years, because over a couple of years, you can sell your draft picks or get trades of players in and you can build your team slowly. It doesn't happen all the time, but there's a system there for that. I'm quite a big fan of the draft system, especially as somebody who lives in a small country with a small league here ourselves. A draft system in Ireland would suit the Irish league. But the other side is, you've UEFA coming in, the other side that are trying to stop teams from growing. They only want this top team. So if you end up with a top six who are all owned by American owners, and UEFA, who have locked the league in a situation where nobody can break into that top six, they can pretty much dictate what they want to dictate. They can say, well, we don't want relegation, and the Premier League can actually put that rule in place. We can do that because it's a separate entity. Or we want more money for the top six and less for the bottom six. And it's a real danger to the competitiveness of the sport. And for me, the backhand here is, or the bribe is, we'll give more money to the EFL clubs. We'll put more money down the pyramid so more clubs lower down can get more money. But just stopping those clubs from ever getting to a position where they could potentially come up through the leagues. I remember Wimbledon being a non-league club, and I've lived through a period where Wimbledon went all the way to the Premier League and then out of existence and back down again and became the MK Dons and then AFC Wimbledon. But that happened. They came all the way up and they were there for a while. That's really hard to happen anymore. And these caps are stopping owners buying smaller clubs and building, like Ryan Reynolds has done at Wrexham. This kind of stops you from going, well, I'm going to buy a club and invest money into it and build it and make it a big team. Well, you can't, because you can only spend 70% of your income on your wages. And if you're not making a lot of money because your stadium's small and your fan base is currently small, well, then you're in trouble. You can't really grow. So I think there's a danger of two different sides. I would like to think, well, I thought earlier on this morning, then I watched Alex's piece today, and Alex's Twitter put an interview up with a guy, or put a recording of a guy up who's talking about all the clubs that are going to be bought by American teams in the next couple of years that are already lined up. And that's when I kind of thought to myself, I'd be a little bit worried now, because there is a voting rights thing there. And they all have a vested interest in keeping their teams in the top flight. But the league loses its interest, it loses its competitiveness, and I think it loses what makes the Premier League special and what makes the English league special. So I think it's a danger. I don't think it'll happen. I really don't think it will happen. I don't think we'll ever see the end of relegation. I think the FA would fight that too much. And I think there'd be too many people to stop that from happening. But I'm more worried about the UEFA and this new deal, putting that cap in place, because I think it stops us as a Leeds team who may end up getting bought out by the 49ers and could grow. It'll stop us from getting into that top six.
I think they look at Europe like America, which is not good to do. And I think they're looking at it, well, we can just lock this Super League in, and then you guys play. We all play each other. Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
And then we have this playoff at the end, and then we'll make oodles of money in a Super Bowl-like championship style thing. And that's just not the way to look at it. Football is for the fans. And if you don't continue to have a scalable football pyramid, then you'll lose the fans. You just will. And I think they all saw that when they tried to do it during COVID. So that hasn't stopped them. They're just being more creative about how it happens. Anyways, gents, I got to go.
Cool.
Talk to you soon.
Thanks
guys.
lads. You can follow Alex over on the American Leeds podcast if you want to get more information on what he does. Michael, what's your take on all of this?
Yeah, I mean, that sort of 70% cap is anti-competitive in a lot of ways, because it does lock in, I think, the teams that have the ability to spend so much more already, and it creates a hard cap. It basically cuts everyone else off from being able to achieve that. I suppose, at this point in time in the development, like could you have implemented something like that a long time ago when things were a little bit more even, potentially? But we've almost sort of bifurcated the league in a lot of ways now. Like, you've got this top section and then everybody else, and that just solidifies that or crystallizes it even more when you do that sort of thing. Because how are the other teams going to catch up at that point? I mean, obviously, you'd expect a team like Leeds to be able to continue to grow commercially, maybe with the takeover with the 49ers and everything, to expand our commercial revenues and be able to catch up a little bit. But how do you catch up to that when you're capped that way? It becomes next to impossible to do. I mean, growth is often tied to success, and success is often tied to money. So they sort of feed each other that way, right? You need to spend money to make money, right? Spend money to get the players that you need to be able to pay for the talent, to be able to grow the popularity of the team by winning things, or by at least being competitive. And it sort of cuts everyone off at the knees from being able to do that. So yeah, it's definitely not something that you'd want to see come in. And we were talking a little bit about Super League, and I mean, I have no idea what's going to happen with that. But my view of it, I sort of had two things. One, I don't want to see it. But two, if the teams who want to do it, that's fine. Go ahead, but don't expect to come back and be able to compete in the domestic league then, because frankly, you're just creating a even worse disparity between the wealth of the team. So why should you cut everyone else off? Just use that phrase again. Cut everyone else off at the knees. Go into this other league where you're making all kinds of money, and then come back and expect to compete still with the same teams that you're sort of cutting off. Like, I don't think that's fair at all. So if you want to do it, go ahead and do it. Just don't expect to be able to come back and take part in all the domestic competitions, as far as I'm concerned. But
I think it gets boring.
I'm not king of the world, so I can't.
But I think it gets boring after a while. I mean,
yeah,
that's the thing. I think that has killed the Champions League for me. And as I said, we talked before we came on. With the lack of actual Leeds football, I've been watching Champions League. I rarely watch Champions League. I'm usually out coaching a team, so I miss games. But I watched some Champions League and I watched some Spanish football, and God, it was boring. It was so dull to watch. There was, like, you're watching Barcelona playing a team, you're like, well, they're going to win. You're watching Real Madrid play a team, you're like, well, they're going to win. And it's only when it gets to the last stages where it's anyway kind of interesting. But seeding was the start of all of this. I hate seeding in cup competitions. Just throw everyone in a hat and go hell for leather, and let the big boys knock each other out in the first round. I'm all over that one. Let's have a couple of shocks. Let's have a couple of big surprise wins. But you're never going to break this mold of, the top two teams in Spain, Italy, England, maybe France, maybe one team in France, who are going to win the European Cup. But after a period of time, it just gets boring. It's... Real Madrid have won 12 Champions Leagues. Great. You won 10 of them the last 15 years, since football changed, and it's not the same. And I think you start getting to a stage where people start going, I don't want to watch this anymore, and then the viewership starts to drop off. And is the Super League sustainable without the viewers? I don't think so. And I'm in the boat. If Man United and Liverpool and Arsenal and Spurs want to pop off over to playing a Super League, go. I'm okay with that. I'll watch Leeds. Premier League will build itself back up again, and you won't be in it.
Yeah,
and I'm okay with that.
Yep, we'll take the hit for now, but over the long term, I think we'll end up back on top again. Because I agree with you. I mean, I don't really watch Champions League that much anymore. I used to watch it religiously. I'm the same as you. I haven't watched it at all this season.
It's a tough watch. I found myself looking at my phone about 20 minutes into one of the games and going, this isn't good. I'm scrolling on blindly scrolling on my phone while there's a match going on in the background. It missed a lot for me. Philip, agreeing with your point there as well. We'll see. I hope it doesn't happen. I don't think it ever will. I don't think it will. Yeah. But they always say, when you try once and you fail, they're gonna try again. They'll come back in 5 years. It's how it works. Michael, last thing before we wrap up. There are 10 games left between now and the World Cup break. We've had a couple of weeks to calm down after a couple of bad results and assess the entire picture. How do you think we're fitting as a group of players? And do you think we're set, or how do you think we're set for the next 10 games leading into the World Cup break?
Yeah, so I'm quite happy so far about how the season has gone overall. There are things that I'm upset about. I think we should have, built in those areas that we talked about before. We needed a striker, we needed a left back. I would be a lot more comfortable with where I think we would finish. I think very easily mid-table, maybe right in the middle. Like I think my prediction was if we got the left back and the striker that I think we need, we may even finish something like 9th or 10th. Still, do I think that we're in danger this season, despite the last, couple results which haven't been great? No, I don't think so. I think we're going to be fine. We're doing better than teams like Aston Villa right now, for example, which teams that you might expect to be doing better. And I don't necessarily think that some of the teams that are doing well, it's still early days. I don't think Fulham is going to be, in the top 10, coming out of the season. They are looking quite a lot better this season.
Far better.
That is Mitrovic
doing better. Yeah, scoring goals.
Yeah, exactly. Will that continue all the way through? I don't know. It's a weird season because of this break in the middle with the World Cup, and obviously the break that we're having now with Leeds. We're not playing for like 29 days or something, which is outrageous in and of itself. But I think we're going to be all right. Comfortably mid-table, probably not looking over our shoulder too much. I think we're playing. The Brentford game was a disaster, but I think generally we're playing well enough. Overall that we're creating enough chances to win games, to pick up points. Obviously the Chelsea result, for example, was a shock, but a very, very happy one. I think we might see more of that. I think we might have games where we're able to turn teams over enough to survive without being too worried.
I think I fancy us more against the big teams, and I'm excluding Manchester City from that because Haaland versus Llorente, I'm terrified of what that's going to happen. I saw a tweet, and it was a mock-up scoreline of, I can't remember who it was, Man United versus Everton, but it was like 20-0, and they were like the Haaland versus this player marking him, and they just showed all the goals Haaland scored, all of them. Like that could totally happen to us if Llorente is playing against them. So outside of that, I think teams that come and play again, and it was the same as Bielsa to a degree, but teams that come and play against us, I think we can catch them. Our style of play will get in behind them and we'll score goals. Yeah. It's the teams that present this low block, and if we still have the issues with Llorente at the back, then we're still looking. I mean, we got through the low block at Brentford pretty well. We scored twice. We scored once against the low block with Everton. So it's getting better. If you can sort out the Llorente mistakes, bring Cooper back in or sign another centre half or bring Creswell back, whatever way they do it, get that bit sorted, I think we could be okay. I fancy us, and I'm in agreement with Philip there. I reckon I'd like to see us between 11th and 14th. I think would be a comfortable season to just settle after last year's nerves and then build. The benefit we have is we don't really the January transfer window is not that far away, even though if you look at a calendar, it probably is. But in terms of matches and the World Cup break, we're going to get 10 games to get through without a left back, a better left back than we've got. So you are looking at moving into that after 10 games. We could probably get through the next 10 games with Stroke and with Firpo, and we'd be okay. But then they have to do something when we get past that break and bring in someone else. I'm not going to mention the Dutch player who we're being linked with repeatedly because I'm just not going to do it. But if we get left back sorted, and I would like to see us sign up a centre half of Premier League caliber who is calm and composed. Costs a lot of money, but if you're going to spend your money anywhere, if we can shore up the defence, I think for the second half of the season, we should be fine. Because we look like we're going to score goals. I keep saying it. And the under 21s were funnily very, very similar to the first team when I watched them. It's going forward, incredible to watch. Really dangerous looking team, could score at any moment. As soon as we lose the ball, it's, oh, Jesus Christ. There's just acres of space in behind. We're going to get higher. So I think if we can just balance the defense a bit, I know they've done a lot of work over the last couple of weeks. They've mentioned it. So I'm hoping, and we talked about that preseason, it's just counterattacks. It's getting caught on counterattacks. Get that sort. I think we're in a steady position for the second half of the season. But I'm happy enough with what we've done so far. I mean, the 5-2 at Brentford, last year I could have been kicking a wall at that stage, or, you know, my girlfriend would have decided I'm going upstairs and locked the door like the last game of the season where I was screaming and shouting like a crazy man downstairs. But this year I kind of watched the game and I was entertained enough that at the end of the game we lost 5-2. That's not great. Jeez, we played well. We played some lovely football. We could have won that game. And I wasn't overly, there was a weird feeling. I wasn't overly disappointed, but
ridiculous mistakes cost us on that one. The scoreline flattered them, I think, based on the play of the game.
I agree. I agree. This is an interesting point. Normally leads on to business in January, but I think we have to. To. We'll see where the money comes from. The 49ers were the rumor that was going to fund the Ketelaar deal, and then they were going to take the money that they put on the Ketelaar off the valuation of the club when they did take over. So that's how they get the money back for that. I
was going to address that question. Well, one, because Keith Stroud is a whiny grass.
I have said some beautiful things to referees over the years, and I've been sent off regularly from a sideline. Referees in amateur football don't like when you say to them, "You're the only one getting paid for this, and you're that bad." They really hate that. That's a guaranteed red card. I've got a couple of them, but there's no version where you should be getting a red card for swearing. It was reading what they wrote. It was like a 5-year-old child going to their mother and saying, he said a bad word to me and I'm upset. That's what it read like. Yeah. It's a 10 grand fine for swearing. And he was well within his rights to swear. The fact that the VAR didn't even check it is a disgrace for me. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to get my high horse. I'm going to get all agitated. I'm not doing it. Calm down. Yeah. Thanks for that comment, Kenneth. You just wound me up. Yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting January for once. Although I can see the excuse of the World Cup being wheeled out at some point when we haven't signed a left back, you know. Michael, before my dog goes absolutely crazy because my girlfriend's walking in the front door and the two of them are going to go mental and start barking. I'm just going to say thanks for joining the stream tonight. To everyone, here's one now. There she goes. That's grand. One dog in to let me know someone's home. To everyone who's in the stream who has watched it tonight, thank you very, very, very much for throwing your comments in there, for getting involved. Smudge, again, ridiculous what you've done, but thank you very much. I really appreciate it. And then the last bit of news is I will be doing an interview with Adam Pope on Thursday that we'll put out as a video on Friday. So if you have any questions, I'll stick a note in the community tab tomorrow and you can just throw your comments in there, or you can DM me on Twitter. You can get me at @IJerLynch. And you can get Michael. Michael, where can people find you?
On Twitter at Maynard M.
Michael, any last thoughts before we wrap up?
No, it's just been a real pleasure again. Thanks for having me on, and thanks to all the great comments that we had, and to Smudge as well. That was crazy, legendary, really fantastic stuff. But yeah, that's it. It's been a lot of fun. Safe travels to Seattle.
Yeah,
I'll wave as it goes over.
Brilliant, folks. Thanks very much for dropping in. I'll see you in the morning with the news, and I'm going to hit the button here and make this look really smooth. Mind yourselves. Take care. Have a nice evening. Bye.